Good morning. Thank you, Julia. Dennis, Robert. Were they great or what? Well, I didn't start off with a joke yesterday, and they grabbed me in a circle last night and went like that, so I'm going to have to do one. There was this couple, and they were going through the woods, and they came across this dead bunny. And the man looked down, and his heart sank, and he was feeling so bad. And his girlfriend said, "I can help that." He says, "You can't do anything. He's dead." She says, "I can fix it." She reached in her purse and grabbed this can and went, shh. The bunny kind of moved like this, perked up, hopped, turned around, went like this, hopped twice more, went like this, and ran off. And the guy took a look at that and says, "Wow, that's a miracle. How did you do that? What's that can?" She held it up and it said, "Hairspray." And then he says, "Well, what makes you think to do that?" And she says, "Well, silly, right here on the can, it says, restores life to dead hair and adds permanent wave." Okay, this is the year, guys. This is the one, 2012. We've been waiting a millennium for it. It's here. It's our chance to understand and see something totally different than has happened here before. Interestingly enough, there's a lot of doom and gloom and different ways of looking at it. So I'm going to paint a picture today and give you maybe a slightly different way to look at it. We're going to start with the big picture and kind of come it down a little bit. This is all about an astronomical movement. Most of you know that the Earth is tilted on its axis 23.5 degrees, slightly, and it follows an elliptical orbit around the sun, which gives us our seasons, the winter and the cold. And as the orbit shifts and changes, the direction of the light from the sun hits us, and it moves us from being warm to cold. Well, that's a small scale. To us down here, that's large, but in a sense, to the universe, that's a very small scale. When you bump it up a whole nother scale, you get into a stellar background. Now, the universe has been around for, according to the latest flash, of course it keeps changing all the time, but the latest is it's been around for about 14 billion years. This planet, about 6. Now, the cycle that we're going through takes 26,000 years. So what I'm trying to tell you is, here was the universe, then came us, then came the planet, and in the last 6 billion years, it's gone through that cycle over and over and over. It isn't like it's never happened before. That's the shift of saying, okay, it is as it should be. It's part of the process right now. What I'm also trying to tell you is that within that cycle, if you notice our seasons, the 4 of them that they cross, the equinox and the solstice, as they work together, what you'll find is there's 3 months, then another 3 months, another 3 months, and it goes around. On a larger astronomical scale, as you're moving through the zodiac, so to speak, it takes 2,000 to 2,150, depending upon what point of reference you use, to go through a single section of 12 sections. That's why it takes 26,000 years for the thing to go all the way around. So what we've just experienced and are moving past is the last section just before spring. What we're coming out of is a cycle to where we're opening up a whole new window of opportunity and understanding and energy for the planet. As any cycle, as it goes, there's always a beginning and an ebb and flow as it happens. In other words, if you have one cycle here that's winter and another one that's spring, there's always that transition that takes place. You can't get from black to white without a little gray somewhere in the middle. So what happens is as that transition takes place, whatever goes on around it affects it. I'm going to get you up here one more time. You have to understand the universe is huge, but the universe is all connected. The whole process is connected. So what affects one piece affects the rest of it as well. As much as you might think, okay, the sea is huge, here's a little drop of water, doesn't make a difference. But if you put that drop of water back in the sea and tide changes, it affects that drop of water. Any shift like that makes a movement. Even the little teeny pieces feel it, and it'll feel it anywhere around. Okay, we're going to move forward a little bit. The last cycle that we had before this one was the end of winter. The dark clouds on the sky. You know what it's like when the weather's really kind of lousy and it shifts and it changes and it's no fun place to be. That was the energy that was here on the planet. Not because we were good, bad, God hated us, or any of this other nature, just because it's part of the cycle. You can't get mad at the end of winter. It just is. It's part of the process. What you also have to understand is there's this huge collective consciousness, and around our planet is this connected spiritual consciousness. And as that spiritual consciousness had to go through winter just as everything else did. It doesn't mean that the consciousness wasn't aware of the shift and change up here. I'm certain it was. In fact, I know it was. But the difference is that it still had to take place. You take that and move it down into a planet down here so that the people in the more connected energy on a much smaller scale has to experience it too. So what happens is you'll find that during that dark period and during the time when the transition takes place and you get down to where you're at and you're trying to go, man is experiencing that energy too, collectively. God, in his wisdom, sent a messenger. He knew that from this point to this point was going to be a very dark cloud. So he sent a messenger. His name was Christ. And you know what he said? He gave you two big rules. And the funny thing is that they were there to sort of help you get through the dark time. It was a way to kind of say, look, I know it's going to be tough, but here's how you do it. And it moves you past that point. Now, what did he say? I'll save it for later. Okay. Basically, what he said was, when they asked, how do you pray? He said, go into your closet and be still. He directed traffic right to one spot. And they asked him about where the kingdom of heaven was. He said, within you, more directed traffic right to one spot. So you're now getting the information that you need to get you through the dark part. But what happens is this collective consciousness is made up of a bunch of individuals, but that collective consciousness is down here too. And as while it's under a dark kind of cloud, people feel suppressed. They don't feel that spring energy. They don't feel that magnetism that's out when you're feeling on a sunshiny day, you're out at the beach and everything's great. What about a dreary situation when it's cold and it's terrible? You're freezing? There's a totally different energy present. And what was really happening is the people down here on the planet were going through it, and they were trying to figure out a way to how to get through. So what they did is they created this little box. And I'm using Christianity as an example, but there's a bunch of different ones. But they created a box that if you stayed right in this little box and did this and didn't do that, right, wrong, this, that, up, down, you could get from here to there. And you know what? It actually worked. We're here. It didn't matter the fact that there was a lot more, but under the weather, under that storm, it was important that they get from here to there, so you needed it. And since you really don't know your subject, what really happens now is you know God's running the show somewhere in your spirit, and if God's running the show and we're going through all of this, he must be a vengeful God. Oh boy, that's a really tough thing to deal with. He's right there ready to put his thumb on top of you because the energy's that way. Well, if you don't know any better and you're struggling with it, that's what you take on. That's the feeling that you get. And when you're trying to give people guidance and direction and it's all there and God's like that, you create something called hellfire and damnation, right? You create it to get them to jump through the hoop, do exactly what they're supposed to do. And you know what? Pretty much it worked. It was not a fun thing to experience. It wasn't easy to get through. What they did in the name of God during that period was absolutely ugly. You don't have to go too far back in history to find inquisitions and crusades and all sorts of other stuff that were ugly and were very much in a problem. So at this point in time, what we're doing is we're getting past that point. Okay, sorry about that. We're getting past that point, and we're moving forward into what's happening. We're moving out of this dark period. What's happened, interestingly enough, back in those days during that dark period, when secrets were trying to be revealed, everything that could happen was being done to suppress them. That's why the church and science had such an argument going on, because the church wanted to say it was this because that, and we're going to put it in this box, and that's how it works. The universe is this big, and oh boy. And the second that they turned around and someone like Galileo tried to say, hey, wait a minute, the earth isn't the center of the universe, guess what happened? That didn't match their story, so the first thing they did was try and suppress it. Well, continuously, when common sense or practical application would come up and didn't fit in the box, the very first thing they wanted to do was put a lid on it and don't let you past it. So what they did is they put you in a position of having to deal with it from that standpoint. And the reason was it just wasn't time yet. There wasn't a wrong place to be. It was just the way things were. When you stop and think about this for a minute, look at Galileo. Leonardo da Vinci. He invented a helicopter. He had a winged flying apparatus. He even had a scuba diving outfit. And you know what? None of them ever happened. Not because the potential for it to be there wasn't there, and the principles around which it would have worked. It just wasn't time. It hadn't reached the point where it's gotten to where it is today. Well, what's happened during this transition is we come out of the storm and we come out of the darkness, the light starts to shift around. Well, guess what happens in spring? Change. It happens big time. The weather shifts, the circumstances hit, and whenever there's change going on, it creates a little bit of disturbance. It's how it is expressed and what you can do with it. Now, when you're dealing with change, most people, myself excluded, how many people do you know run right up and embrace change? In fact, they're holding back like this, and some of them are going kicking and screaming. Well, it might be worse, even though it could be better. You know, it doesn't matter. They're not happy where they're at, but they're going to fight you to stay where they are. It doesn't matter. So as this transition and the pieces move forward and come out from where they were, it gives a chance for this change to see a different point of view. What's happened is science has caught up to a point now where we're looking at a universe that's huge. You got to remember, this last one was in the little box. Hellfire and damnation can't do anything but. Now it's opened up. You see yourself in a totally different relationship. Man with the universe and the universe he lives in. And now we're communicating all the time. This energy is moving around back and forth. Everybody's talking. Before, when they put that little box out there, most people couldn't read or write, never been 50 miles from home. That's different. It's all changed. It's all changed because it's time, just like the flying machine, just like the other set of circumstances. And what's also time that wasn't there before is the chance for that energy to shift and to let go of what was there, because you know what? Winter is over. It's time to move on. But the cloud, the energy, the consciousness that's here in mankind and spirituality, is starting to awaken, and it will come into its own on its own. There are people running around talking about it like me, but the fact is it's going to happen regardless. It's a part of nature. It's up, it's coming, and its time is here. So what's going to happen is the shift is going to take place, and people are going to start seeing it differently. What they're also seeing, since you're seeing this huge universe, and you can create a position up here where there's a collective consciousness, free will has been there. And people say, well, how does free will go and all this? No. If you've got a collective consciousness, you have free will at this level to either be here or not be here, to choose to be here at this time through this set of circumstances, through this season. Once you're here, the decision's already been made, but up here you decided to either come and be part of it or wait out till the next cycle or whenever it worked for you. But the choice was here. Once you're down here and this choice shifts around a little bit, now you get to determine how you're going to deal with it and handle it, how it's going to work for you, how all this shift comes about, where you fit in it. Also, if you have a collective spiritual consciousness, that's great. If you bring it down to an individual, now you have an identity. But at the same point in time, that identity starts to feel isolated and different, because what you've done in your own way is you've separated this little piece of the whole from the whole, even though it's still part of the whole. And we're going to give it an identity. And you've got one. Everyone on the planet that's here is still connected. But they are an individual connection, an individual opportunity to interact within that. And the end result is we get you, and you, and you, and you, and me. The different people, the individuals, part of that collective consciousness, the expression, the opportunity to share and grow, all within it. And things are moving so quick and so fast these days, and they're moving forward in such a way that it's very hard to keep up with. So in your own way, you find yourself, as much as you're starting to feel collectively part of it, you're starting to feel like an individual in it too, and a little bit lost, because the world's going by at light speed, well, at least at internet speed, and it's moving that direction. And so it gives you a place to sort of feel like you want to be part of it on one hand, but lost in the shuffle all at the same time. Guess what? All you really need to do is realize, one, that it's there, but two, that you're part of it, and three, you're the individual that gets to make the choice on how it works or doesn't work. Now we're going to go back to the secret weapons, the two answers that were given 2,000 years ago. As an individual, you want and you are part of that. How do you access it? Well, you go into your closet and be still. You get connected to your higher self. And where do you look for the answers? Where's heaven? It's within you. What you're going to find out is you've got a beautiful little energy field around you that's your aura. And that individual aura is part of this collective consciousness, but it's an individual aura. And as you learn and spend some time to get inside within yourself and feel it, you'll start to notice that energy change. And as you move it inside yourself and let it start to come up and connect, if you'll just touch it a little further, you'll find that there's just a small little gap between my energy and the collective energy. And if I learn to bridge the gap, all of a sudden I feel things, I understand things, I sense things that I wasn't before. You pull it into your mind and you let it absorb through osmosis, in the sense that it brings ideas and it brings understanding and it brings you back in, helps you to bring yourself into balance, whatever it is that you need as an individual. That's why, because see, each one of you in this big maze, as all this stuff's going around, has your own little individual needs and wants, desires and things. It's important that you deal with those. You can't deal with everybody else's. You've got to deal with your own, and that's where you find them. And that's what's so wonderful about universal energy, is it works for each and every one of you exactly the way you need it. I'm wrong. I'm going to summarize it by simply saying that you all have chosen to be here at a very special time. And when you start to see what opportunities are here and what's there and how you can embrace it and how you can make it part of who and what you are, this whole idea of doom and gloom is going to shift. Change is going to happen. Yes, it is. But Jim said to me a little earlier, he says, I said, Jim, are you prepared? And he says, no, but I'm prepared to change. And basically what it looked forward is that he was going to handle it based on whatever came up down the road. So I'll close by saying the questions are endless, but the answer's always the same. What you make of this opportunity is totally up to you. Thank you.